This is a place that has had that traditional port development and small villages, small dispersed rural settlement, partly linked to farming and fishing as traditional industries. More recently, though, the factory and the development of Tralee has drawn in more and more people from the area, and of course it's fed people out from Tralee to increase the settlement pattern here as well. On this northern side, where the small coastal port here of Fenit is, it's essentially an erosive coastline, partly dominated by carboniferous limestones and shales, but with a very strong glacial overlay of softer glacial sediments. And the softer sediments are the ones which cause the problem of erosion under primarily western storms. So we have these eroding northerly coastlines contrasted with, perhaps again what you can see behind us, these slopes coming down from the Dingle Peninsula, with the hills coming up behind at a much lower angle, and those slopes are essentially again glacial, but develop softer sedimentary systems of marshes and dunes, as opposed to the cliffed eroding coastlines here. So quite a diverse environment. The key vulnerability there would be, of course, immediately the houses, any built structures along those cliff edges, and the smaller coastal villages, and of course the communications that connect those settlements. So the road is certainly vulnerable. There's a lot of protection put in place to try to reinforce and establish and maintain the roads, and of course the protection around the settlement sites. At the moment we're on Inch Beach, which is in Dingle Bay, fairly typical of the types of embayed coastlines we have along the southwest part of Ireland. The Inch attraction here is this long spit-like structure of a major sand dune series, giving a wide beach which is ideal for beach tourism. So they're sort of complex spit structures, and these are again fairly common along these southwest embayments. It's a nice place to come to show what is again characteristic of this type of area. The roads are often built very close to the current coastlines. Some of these roads, of course, inherited from much earlier when they were further away, but coastal erosion has become a significant feature here, and the rock armouring, which we can see behind us, is part of this response to try to protect these coastal roads from disappearing completely into the sea. In Fenit, it's even closer. The road is lower, the beach material is composed of the glacial sediments, the glacial cliffs are eroding really quite fast, and that road is clearly likely to go very quickly. The local response has been to put almost anything they can find, farm debris, cars, old bits of machinery, bits of concrete from demolished buildings, as part of any sort of response to slow the rate of cliff retreat down. We don't have that here, but in other parts like at Fenit, that has been the local response, which is now being replaced by much more formal protection measures such as this rock armouring. We're in Rossby, which is on the south side of Dingle Bay, opposite the Inch Spit where we were earlier, and we're just at the back end of what is now becoming really quite a fast eroding dune sequence. This spit would have formed 5,000 to 6,000 years ago as a coherent sand dune spit on top of a cobble barrier 2 to 3 kilometres offshore. And the whole system has come onshore, progressively moving closer and closer to its modern day position. And then it's stabilised at this point. That process of moving onshore would have been not a continuous one. It would have been not continuous in time, and the system itself would have had channels and breaks within it. And this is what's just happened recently here, is that the end of this particular spit at Ross Bay has opened up a breach and allowed the sea to develop a double channel system to allow water back into the Castlemaine harbour behind us. There's uncertainty as to what will happen, what implications that will have for wildlife on the one side, natural habitats, and for the basic economy, the tourist economy on the other side. So people are very upset and want to know, what are we going to do about this type of change? The really fascinating feature just behind, the embankment that runs along in the far distance with some channels cut through, which were the positions of the sluices, was an embankment that was built around about the turn of the 19th century, between 1795 and 1800. And it was land that is now was taken in at that time as marshland and reclaimed. The term is inned, to allow the marsh to build up and to become agricultural land. Storms, coastal erosion, lack of money for maintenance of it has allowed the area to be reoccupied by the sea. So as an example of us accommodating changing environments, they took the opportunity and then they eventually allowed it to go back to its former state. So we can take a cue really from that as to how we might see the use of coastal systems under a changing climate, I think, into the future, to accommodate the changes that are going to take place and change our economic activities as the coast changes. If storminess increases, then of course the instability continues. If the sediment supply changes, of course, again, the instability continues. And certainly from the models that have been done and the forecasts that have been done, we're looking at very much fluctuating storminess, different scales of storminess as we move into a warmed climate. So the likelihood is that this sort of instability is going to continue. We can't really look at this as a stable system. If we put people on top of this as well, that's a real wild card. Because of course people trampling over the dunes, walking on the dunes, recreation, is going to increase that instability. The little bits of surveys that have been done in terms of student projects, local community projects, the coastal managers as the county council, the feedback is coming in is that yes, people are much more aware and taking more interest in the sense of what the future may have. And that's to the good, because then there's a debate that starts as to, well, how do we manage these sorts of areas? The way to look at this, of course, is thinking in much longer term management approaches to perhaps the development of new roads, relocations of some of the tourist activities, working more with the environment rather than trying to protect what's actually there.